for Real Talk Radio. You're listening to the National Intel Report with your host, John Stadtmiller.
We are back. Mike, any other... Jeez, you've been hanging on the line for a long time. Any other follow-up, Mike?
Yeah, I've got two quick questions. I'll get off the phone and listen. And, Bob, to you again, sir. Do you think there'll ever be an alliance between the UAE, China, and Russia to gang up with the death of the dollar upon the Western banks in the future? And do you think that there'll be a run by September by the Dutch Mark Bank where the Germans were demanding their custodial accounts back and on gold? And do you think they'll run on the COMEX because they're now aligning a little bit with Russian barter deal that's going to come up? You think we're seeing a paradigm shift here or beginning? And I'll hang up.
Oh, we could be.
Thanks, Mike.
But I think the decisions have already been made as to who's going to be doing what and who's going to be teamed up with whom, and what that new configuration is going to be as far as the reserve currency is concerned. Look, all of these groups are all in bed with each other. Russia, China, the supposed BRIC nations. I think it's a diversion. And when all is said and done, these guys all play ball together. Don't forget, the communists in China were put in power by the U.S. And if you go to Russia, communism, the Soviet Union, fell. And it's because the U.S. shut off their money, essentially. And the people who are in power in Russia have a great deal that they owe to the Western European and American illuminists. So there's so many complex things going on here. It's really, really hard to call.
Bob,
and, I just don't have the answer.
Well, do you think we might be reaching the point that the assembled illuminists and the people that they have control of in the respective countries, do you see a possibility these people may see this as an opportunity to break away, to have independence and sovereignty for their own countries, at least in regards to economics? Do you think this is crossing their minds?
Only if we do it. We, the American people. If we can stop the illuminists, then they'll break away. Whether that's through doing away with the Fed and erecting tariffs on goods and services, if we could accomplish that, and then have the trials for treason and thievery and corruption, maybe countries would break away and do their own thing, like China and Russia. On the other hand, that may happen if there's revolution in the United States as well. And there would be many revolutions throughout the world with the breakdown of illuminist control. I don't see any invasions from anybody. I don't think it's in their best interest. I think it's too difficult. And the main reason in America is that you want to face 80 million Americans who are heavily armed? I don't think so.
Yeah, that might present a problem. Dave and Eric...
I mean, the Japanese wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And you know what they said? Look, the NRA has trained all these people and they can shoot straight. No, we don't want to do that.
Well, and I have been told from other sources outside of this country that, in fact, there are a lot of eyes watching the United States simply because they know that if the United States goes, so goes the rest of the planet. And we're talking on the freedom and liberty side. There's a lot of people sitting around the globe watching the United States intently. We have made a lot of enemies worldwide for a long, long time. But as people have figured out that the Illuminists have been well entrenched in our government as well as any other government on planet Earth. And they're now starting to learn the reasons, the cause and effects. And I think you're correct, Bob. I think what we've got to do is show some stamina here, some backbone, and whether we have our second American Revolution or we just have business interrupt us for a short period of time, which we're going to have anyhow, thanks to the Illuminists and their banker buddies, we can go through a much shorter period of discomfort, casting these clowns aside. And I'll tell you, Bob, I wouldn't want to be a politician in Washington, D.C. nowadays because they're caught between a rock and a hard place.
And that's why there's 183 sponsors for Ron Paul's bill to audit the Fed. That is, I mean, if somebody had asked me, is that possible 4 months ago, I would have said, you got to be kidding. The bankers got them all bought off in Congress. Well, obviously, the constituents are screaming and yelling, and the politicians are saying, oh, my goodness, I better co-sponsor this thing or I won't be in office.
Dave in Arizona. Hello, Dave.
Great. Always great to speak to you guys.
Thank you.
I just thought I would bring up an interesting point. And by the way, I totally agree with you guys that the United States has no choice but to maintain the First and the Second Amendment.
I don't see any other way. That was my message to the fine folks at Jekyll Island, along with Oath Keepers and everybody else assembled, that if they get wind of what we're doing, how serious, and the American people are serious, and they are starting to wake up in vast numbers. But if they get wind of this, that I reminded people of the parallel plan, of which they already have contingencies for, Dave. You know that as well as I.
Yep.
But it is what it is. You know, I don't make the rules here. The only thing I can do is respond to what treachery and treason that's abounding, and everybody's waking up to the criminality.
Yep.
You know, we've got the social engineers in there with Barack Obama and the boys now assembled in Congress, but this is blowing up in their faces as well.
Payback might be ugly.
Well, and you know what? There's that little, isn't there a little prison off the California coast off of San Francisco Bay there?
That's it's empty. Let's fill it.
That's right. That's right.
And I've been in there, and it's a horrible place, let me tell you.
Manson's there, right?
No, Charlie isn't there. No.
Hey, I just thought I would bring up one thing you guys might find interesting on the subprime loans. The banks have something called a credible yield, which is the difference between the value of the loan and the cash flow expected. And that banks like Chase has made $29 billion, Bank of America has made $14 billion, and Wells Fargo's made $10 billion on the subprime loans that they bought off of WAMU, Countrywide, and National City.
But it's only a bookkeeping entry, and it's a scam.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, they're not liquid.
Well, it isn't that. It's just that, well, no, they're not liquid. But the important thing is, how can you have a gain in something when there's no market for it except for the Federal Reserve, who might buy them from you?
Yeah, it's not
So what do they do? They put them on the books all, let's say, at 40 cents, and the Fed is going to offer them 60, maybe. And so what do they do? Make 20 cents on the dollar on the bonds? I don't think so.
And
it's a one-time, one-off thing.
Yeah, then what is it representing? It's representing, as you said, Bob, just a book entry.
Right.
Yeah, so it's...
It's just more smoke and mirrors.
Right.
More thievery and chicanery. And that's what the Fed and Wall Street and banking is all about. And this time, this is going to be the last time for a long, long time that they're going to do this. Whether we do it through the Congress and the court system or otherwise. The game is over for these people. Communications are too great today. And I know that we're going to stop them because I know the American people are going to wake up. And John knows that too, and so does it Robbie.
I think it's happening.
Let me just correct something real briefly. I just checked on the co-sponsors of H.R. 1207. And as of May the 22nd, there's 179 co-sponsors.
There's a few more that have been added.
I got an email over the weekend that said 183.
And what do they need, 212?
Yeah, something like that.
somewhere in that vicinity.
But
We'll
they
worry
also need
about it when we get there. We're doing great.
They need a companion bill in the Senate.
I think they
We'll deal with the Senate later. Let's just get it. Look, everybody who's listening, get a copy of the forecaster. The list is there of all the people who have co-sponsored. Send them a note and say, thanks so much. Now get it passed. For the people who didn't co-sponsor, say, we want you to co-sponsor. We want you to get it out of committee. We want you to vote for it. And we want to keep you in office for doing so.